Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving deep into the story of a man who held a nation in his grip for more than 40 years.
It's a question that really gets to the heart of the life of Libya's Muammar Gaddafi. We're going to unpack his entire 42-year rule, a journey that starts with these grand promises of liberation and ends, and I mean this literally, in a sewer pipe.
So to really get a handle on Gaddafi, you have to understand the world that created him. He was born into a Libya that had been a stomping ground for foreign invaders for centuries, and that fact would shape absolutely everything about his life.
Okay, so what's so fascinating here is that every single point is a stepping stone to his future. I mean, he was literally born into the resistance. His own father fought the Italians. He grew up hearing these horrific stories of their brutality. We're talking concentration camps holding 100,000 people. So just imagine you're this young kid and you turn on the radio and hear the voice of Egypt's Gamal Abdel Nasser calling for Arab unity and defiance. For Gaddafi, that wasn't just politics. No way. It was deeply, deeply personal.
For a young, ambitious guy like Gaddafi, this realization was a complete game changer. He looked at the military and didn't see a career. He saw a tool. It was the most direct, most powerful weapon available to completely reshape a nation and grab power from a monarchy he saw as totally corrupt and in the pocket of the West.
And this just shows how methodical he was. This was not some spontaneous rebellion. He started plotting this thing back in high school, creating these little secret cells. Then, he and his buddies deliberately got themselves into the military academy. For years, they built this secret network inside the very institution that was supposed to protect the king. It all led to this swift, totally bloodless coup that just took the entire world by surprise.
All right, so the king is out and Gaddafi is in charge. He immediately declares Libya a free, self-governing republic and starts to build a brand new country based on his own really unique and, frankly, radical vision.
Now, this is the crucial part. His first moves were incredibly popular. He was doing exactly what he said he would, booting out foreign powers, taking back control of Libya's massive oil wealth, and leaning into this sense of national and religious pride. For a lot of Libyans at the time, this felt like true liberation.
But Gaddafi's ambitions were way bigger than just Libya. He looked at the world, saw this big struggle between American capitalism and Soviet communism, and he thought, you know what? Both of these systems are failing. So he came up with his own path, a new way forward he called the Third Universal Theory. It was this wild blend of socialism and Islam that he really believed was the only true path to freedom for everyone.
He laid all of this out in his famous Green Book. He saw capitalism as this crazy, unrestrained circus that just made a few people rich while everyone else suffered. And communism? Well, that just turned people into mere sheep controlled by the government. His solution, this Third Universal Theory, was supposed to be the cure for all of it, a system that he claimed gave power directly to the people, freeing them from both corporate greed and government control.
But that promise of a people-powered utopia, it very quickly turned into a total nightmare. Gaddafi's vision of total control started to show its dark and incredibly violent side.
Just listen to these words again. This is what he promised on day one of his revolution. Freedom, unity, social justice. All the right words.
And then, just 3 years later, this was the reality. He didn't just ban other political parties. He made it so that even being part of one was punishable by death. The road to freedom had slammed into a brick wall.
So what did he do? He basically got rid of the government and created thousands of these so-called people's committees. On paper, it sounds like direct democracy, right? Power to the people. But in reality, it was a genius and absolutely terrifying way to stretch his personal control into every single neighborhood, every school, and every workplace. It was a web, making sure no organized opposition could ever get off the ground.
And this is where the fear became a public show. Student protesters would be rounded up and publicly hanged, right on their own university campuses. And these things weren't hidden away. Oh no, they were broadcast on national TV every single year on April 7th. It was a brutal, crystal-clear warning to anyone who even thought about challenging the regime.
To enforce this whole state of fear, he created the Revolutionary Committees. This was his secret police, a paramilitary force of true believers who were loyal only to him. They were everywhere, listening for any hint of dissent, hunting down enemies, and making damn sure that nobody felt safe enough to speak their mind.
Gaddafi's revolutionary dreams didn't just stop at Libya's borders. He saw himself as this major global player, and he used Libya's oil money to export his vision with a mix of funding, weapons, and flat-out terrorism.
This famous quote from President Reagan just perfectly sums up how the West started to see him.
His wild behavior, his fiery anti-Western speeches, and his direct funding of militant groups made him one of the biggest villains on the world stage.
I mean, just look at this timeline. It shows a whole decade of escalating conflict. It was this back-and-forth cycle of violence, from military clashes in the sky to the absolutely horrific bombing of Pan Am Flight 103 over Lockerbie. And that act, the Lockerbie bombing, is really what turned Libya into a complete pariah state, totally cut off by international sanctions.
What's just wild about this is the sheer variety of groups he was backing. I mean, from the IRA to insurgents in the Philippines, basically, if you were fighting a government that was friendly with the West, there was a pretty good chance Gaddafi was sending you cash and weapons. He saw himself as this champion of global revolution, but to his enemies, he was the world's #1 sponsor of terror.
After decades of having absolute power, the very same force that Gaddafi used to grab control in the first place, the will of the people, would finally turn against him, and it would lead to the violent, total collapse of his regime.
So, the key takeaway here is just how fast it all fell apart. When the Arab Spring finally hit Libya, a regime that had looked untouchable for 42 years completely crumbled in just 8 months. The protests kicked off, the regime got violent, the international community stepped in, and just like that, his rule was over.
And this is the final pathetic irony of it all. The man who called himself the King of Kings of Africa, who thought he was this grand historical figure, was found hiding in a concrete pipe. His revolutionary journey didn't end in some blaze of glory. It ended with a brutal, humiliating death at the hands of the very people he claimed to champion.
So, at the end of the day, Gaddafi's story leaves us with this really complex and troubling question. Was he a revolutionary liberator who turned violence, or was he a paranoid tyrant from the start? His legacy is just a bloody contradiction, and it really forces you to ask, where does the revolutionary end and where does the tyrant begin?